Okay, so this is Jeremy Enfinger interviewing a witness regarding Stanley Hotel photographs. There were two of them submitted on ticket number 989048. So I guess my first question is, let's see. God, I have so many. I guess let's talk about the first photo. That's the one in the hallway where there appears to be someone in the very far background. Do you recall when exactly the photo was taken?
It was the afternoon. We were there just touring, so we were with a group, and there were probably, I don't know, 20 of us. And I'd say it was afternoon, like after lunch hour.
Mm-hmm. And this was recently?
No, this was, let's see. This was a couple years ago, probably 5 years ago.
Okay.
When I had visited Estes Park for my cousin's wedding.
Okay. So was it kind of like a paranormal tour, or was it just kind of a,
Sort of, yeah. I mean, the Stanley Hotel has all those stories, so they sprinkled in, history, why the hotel was built, and different stories that people who had visited had encountered. But it wasn't given under the impression that, you'd see or hear anything. It was just a scheduled tour that you can take just to kind of see the hotel. It's a gorgeous place, and they, still offer the public to come stay there. So there's people kind of coming and going, and they showed us the room that inspired the writing of The Shining, and so it's just all within that same tour.
Yeah, it's definitely on my bucket list to go see. So when I'm looking at the photo, there's two people in the foreground, a male on the left sitting down, and a woman on the right standing, looking like she's walking towards you. Do you know them?
I know the man on the left, and that's who I was taking a picture of because I just thought it was funny that he had checked out during the tour. And the woman on the right was just somebody else in our group.
Okay. And do you recall if your camera, I know the woman looks like she's walking, but do you recall if your camera was in motion at all during the image?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It wasn't a quick photo that was taken. I mean, he's in good focus. So I do see that black kind of shadow behind her, like she was running or something, or walking fast. But I don't think my camera was in motion.
Okay. And I think the reason I ask is what's interesting to me is you look at her, she's got obviously a shadow. It almost looks like motion blur with some facial features in the shadow. And then kind of on the top of the frame, you can see where the light might be blurred a little bit in the same direction, left to right. And then on the right side, there's a mirror where it looks like the reflected light might have some motion blur in it. It's really hard to tell, but then the whole left side of the photo doesn't look like there's any motion. So I'm wondering how fast she was walking. Do you recall if she was like in a hurry, did it look like, or was she just kind of slowly moving along?
I can't recall exactly. I think she may have been walking fast to meet up with the rest of her group ahead of us.
Okay. I'm sorry if for some of these questions, I usually go into a lot of detail, and I know it's hard to recall after so long.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's a good memory jog for me.
So I guess at what point do you remember seeing the woman in the photo in the background?
I think I noticed it when we were going back through photos later that night on my camera. And especially when you get it on a computer and kind of enlarge it, it's easier to see. Right. But I do remember the second photo kind of talking about it that night after the tour.
The one with the person in the window?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I have a few, I guess, separate questions about that one I can go into in a bit. I do have a couple more for the first one, though, here. I've got them all written down here. Bear with me.
Sure.
So at any point, do you recall seeing anyone else walking that far in the background, or seeing that particular person with your own eyes?
No. Everybody was ahead of us. And so where that lady, it was a corner, because it was another hallway,
Hmm.
that was kind of an L shape there. But I don't remember anybody else coming around the corner.
Okay. And do you remember approximately what like room number you were near?
I know we were on the fourth floor, um, and I don't recall the room number we were close by, but I could probably figure it out if we looked at a um, floor diagram.
Okay.
But the fourth floor was, at least the story we were told on the tour was, fourth floor is where they kept the kids, and they'd have nannies there. So everybody, like friends and family, would come visit. And they would kind of have their kids stay up there, and there were nannies that would watch them. So there's a bunch of stories of like hearing children laughing and different things like that.
Okay. And you mentioned going through the photos with the other group members. What kind of reaction did you receive when you showed them those?
I didn't show any group members.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't think I saw it until later.
Okay.
And I never submitted it to the Stanley. They collect their own photos of things that tour members have gathered, and I never ended up submitting it.
Oh, is there a reason why?
I just didn't take the time to do it.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's all the questions I have for that photo. Unless there's any additional details that you can think of that might be worth mentioning here.
I don't think so. Yeah, it's an interesting question. What floor number were, or what room number were we by? Because there is a room on that floor that's the most haunted, and I think it's near where we were at. But I'd have to confirm that by looking at the diagram, because I can remember where we were. I just would have to see it to know the room number.
Okay. And I can look for a diagram and maybe shoot that over to you and see if that helps, and
Okay.
see if I can find something. All
Yeah,
right.
I've got a whole album from that visit, so I could kind of look and see what photos were on either side of that to get an idea of where we were at too.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, let's move on to photo number 2 with the figure in the window. What prompted you to take that photo?
I actually just liked the building and the backdrop. It was we never got to go inside, but it was where they have like the midnight ghost tours, and I can't remember the history of why the building was stood up, but it was just sort of an afterthought before we left, just sort of one final shot.
Did that building have a particular name, or did they call it anything specific?
I don't remember.
Okay. And that's probably something that would be on a diagram too. Maybe I can find like a layout if I could maybe identify the exact building it was.
Sure.
So how much time had elapsed between the previous photo and then the one that you took of the building?
Oh, probably half an hour.
Okay. So was it part of the same tour?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it was the same day. It was just, as we were leaving.
Okay. Do you think there's any way that it could possibly be a living person standing in the window?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, there were people in that building and they were giving tours. So I originally didn't think anything of it. It was family members who looked at the photo and thought, when you enlarged it, it looked kind of eerie, because you couldn't see as many facial features. But you can, there's a chance that it's just a regular person or even a figure. I don't know.
Okay. And I notice it looks like it's wearing like a vest and, long sleeve button up shirt. I mean, you have to really zoom in, but it's clear enough to notice that. Did you notice any of the staff at the Stanley kind of wearing period clothing like that?
No, I didn't. But they do weddings there, so there's a chance that maybe it was a waiter or something.
Okay. That makes sense. Try to look at all possibilities here, I guess.
Yeah.
So did you or anybody there in the group see anyone in the window?
No, but we were pretty far away. And we weren't looking, so.
Right.
But I don't recall seeing anybody when I took the shot.
Okay. And then, let's see. Yeah, you did mention that you were talking about that photo later. What kind of reactions did you get from the photo?
People were kind of spooked out by it. The second one more so than the first.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I thought the opposite, but just because it had sort of a demonic outline.
Okay. Yeah, I want to go to my other page and pull up the photo again. Is that the first thing that jumped out to you, or did you?
It wasn't to me. I didn't recognize it right away. But when people were kind of surveying it and scanning it, they pointed it out to me, family members. And
what looks demonic to you about it?
There's the head. You can kind of see like an elongated face, almost with horns. Mm-hmm. Do you see that?
Well, I see it's so hard. Like I can see like maybe there's eyes and a nose. I see something like up. I can't tell if it's horns or not, but it's like a lighter pigment than the background on the figure's right side, and then something that goes a little back on the left. So it's hard to tell if that would be, horns or maybe something like a different hair color, like gray streak or something. It's so hard to tell. I don't know if you had a chance to look at the thread where you submitted this, but I've put several enhanced versions of the photo up here. And I played around with a lot of settings, contrast and brightness and sharpening, and did some color changes to it, inversion. It's and it's I really feel like you can make out, the vest, the collar, the dress collar, the sleeve. You can see a face and almost like a hint of facial features and what looks like either, an ear or a gray streak, or I guess it could be a horn. Yeah, it's interesting. The ELA analysis didn't show, again, any tampering, or there's no suspicion that it was photoshopped or anything like that. Definitely an interesting one. I really wish, the hard thing about these is, I don't think they would keep records at the Stanley of who was working when that far back. We could always check, but
well, I could tell you the weekend I was there. I just need to ask family members when that wedding was, or look at the timestamps on those photos, I guess.
Yeah, let me see. That should show up in the metadata here. Yeah, so the first, let me see if this is photo 1. Yeah, photo 1 is time-stamped. It says November 29th, 2009 at 14:04. So 2:04 p.m.
Oh, okay, longer than 5 years ago.
Yeah, a little while ago. And then the second, it's the same date, November 29th, 2009, 14:33. So, yeah, that fits in with what you just said. I think you said it was less than a half hour.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost exactly a half hour there. So yeah, 2009. I did have just a few questions about your camera, and a lot of this stuff comes up on the metadata as well. I just wanted to see if you remembered what type of camera you were using and model
I think
number.
I've got it here. Hold on. Yeah, I've got the camera still.
Okay.
Let's see. It's a Samsung
Okay.
SL202.
Okay. SL2. Is it like one of those point and click?
Yes.
Let's see. Yeah, it says Samsung on the metadata PL50 Samsung SL202. Yeah. And then let's see. Yeah, so the metadata here, it's kind of nice because it shows you the exposure time, whether or not the flash fired, shows you the exact focal length and aperture values and all that stuff, if you're interested in that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's matching up to that. The one thing I noticed was the JPEG percentage value. Usually that tells us it's kind of like a amount of compression used, and it's high, which indicates it's most likely an original photo. But the more you save the image and then transfer it after being saved, the more that percentage decreases. Now both of these were at 88%. So I just wanted to make sure. I don't know if you had saved it previously and then sent it to me, or if maybe it was renamed or any.
Yeah. I import them from my SD card, from the camera's SD card onto my computer, and I saved it to a file there.
Okay.
And then I actually uploaded the album to Facebook, but I think that I saved the photos that I sent you were saved onto my computer, not downloaded from there.
Okay. Well, that helps. I mean, sometimes people set their JPEG quality a little lower just so they can get more images on the same drive. But I don't know if do you recall if the settings were, altered for that?
I didn't alter them myself. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let me think. What else do I have to ask here? Bear with me here. I'm jumping back and forth between tabs. I think that's all I had for now. Yep, I asked that. So I guess one more question, maybe. Like, what were your goals in submitting this to the Black Vault? Like, are there any particular things you'd like to see happen, or anything I can work on for you?
Honestly, I didn't have any specific goals. I thought it was interesting, and I guess wanted some feedback on just your take on it. And the photo that's most interesting to me is that first one. Right. I've shown it to a couple people, and they, some people see it, some people don't, but it's very clear to me. I see the outline of a woman's body and what could be like a nanny outfit, Right. But it's not like regular garb, it's kind of dated. So it was just interesting, and I figured I'd get some feedback.
Yeah. I got to tell you, though, when I first saw this one, I thought that the shadow to the left of the person in the foreground was what the picture was of. And before I zoomed in or anything, I was kind of looking at that and kind of looking around, and then once I zoomed in, it was very clear. It was like, oh my gosh, there it is.
Yeah, you can see like an arm and the start of a leg. Like there's a clear shape of a body there to me.
Right. I can't make out facial features.
No, yeah.
And then I also I don't see any shadows projected by that person in the background either, which I thought was interesting. Whereas, most of the time, like you can see if you usually have a couple sources of light. In this one, it's interesting because you have several lights on the ceiling, plus some reflected light off the wall, and probably the flash from the camera. But you don't see any shadows behind the one in the back. So I think that's an important aspect too. But sure. Yeah, I mean, everything that I'm looking at appears to be, it definitely not altered. I think you've got a really cool picture here. The other one, I think, personally, and I do more investigation stuff with paranormal sightings of spirits or ghosts or whatever you want to call them. I tend to find that the ones where it's possible that it could be a person are typically those get thrown out, but it's still an interesting photo. I think the facial shape is up for some interpretation, though it's not as highly detailed as it could be,
Right.
But the fact that you weren't even really trying to take a picture through the window, you were just trying to get the whole building, which, like you said, it's a beautiful place. But definitely worth mentioning, especially since it was caught in such close time frame as the first one.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just my initial impression. I may, with your permission, I've got a couple other people that I typically show photos to. One's a professional photographer who does some investigation stuff with me. He's up in LA, and another one's down here in San Diego as well. But
I
again,
don't mind that at all.
okay, and I'll make sure they don't post this out anywhere. John's probably the only one that's going to be posting this, but yeah, I think for now that's all the questions I have. I can send you this audio file if you want to listen to it, and if there's anything you'd like me to edit out, feel free before I